The Manitowish Waters Historical Society presents the Wisconsin State Historical Marker Unveiling and Dedication of the 1934 Spider Lake Raid on the John Dillinger Gang on August 24th, 2024. Take a few minutes to look at this slide. It will show you the program agenda for the Wisconsin State Historical Marker Unveiling and Dedication.
This will be historic marker number 616 in the state of Wisconsin. So that's pretty amazing. And you can find these markers along the highways and byways. And this one started from a casual conversation between Kay Krantz, a member of our Historic Society board, and Scott Malik, an FBI agent, when he and his family were vacationing here in Manitowish waters. So I would like to begin the program by asking Scott to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand and remain standing while Miss Madison Teen Natalie Pop sings the national anthem, and then we will have an invocation. So,
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
thank you. And boys, thank you. Now, Miss Madison Teen to do the national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you for that beautiful rendition. And now I would like to introduce the band consists of students from North Lakeland Elementary School and Lakeland High School, and it's going to be conducted by Bill Richter and Scott Wills, and they will play Americana. New band members, very nice. Okay. Now I'd like to introduce Kay Kranz, a member of our historic board, and the resident expert on all things Dillinger Raid, who is going to tell us the story of that fateful day that occurred 90 years ago on April 22nd, 1934. This is the Reader's Digest condensed version of the story. And if you want to hear the whole unabridged version, I think you can get it on our website, or you can talk to Kay and maybe she'll do it for you. So anyway, Kay.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm so glad that everybody turned out for this because I think it's a... Okay, now we can hear me. Anyways, thank you for all of you for being here. Good afternoon. The John Dillinger story has been a significant part of the history of what was once Spider Lake and now is Manitowish waters. 90 years to be exact. On the weekend of April 20th through April 23rd, 1934, FBI agents engaged in a raid and attempted capture of the Dillinger gang at Emil and Nan Winetka's Little Bohemia Lodge. Since that faithful night, Winetka's Little Bohemia and has had people come from across the country to see the site of the now infamous firefight between FBI agents and the Dillinger gang. As a member of the Wisconsin Historical Society and the Manitowish Waters Historical Society, I lead tour groups and talk about the events and people involved in that historic weekend. However, today is not a tour talk. It's not about Dillinger, and it's not about those criminals that were in his gang. We're here today to recognize the members of law enforcement who were killed or wounded while in the line of duty, and to recognize the loss of life and the wounding of innocent citizens at Little Bohemia. So, in the darkness of the night of Sunday, April 22nd, a civilian was killed, 2 civilians were wounded, an FBI agent was killed, an FBI agent was wounded, and the Spider Lake town constable was gravely injured in the line of duty. W. Carter Baum, an FBI special agent from Chicago, was ambushed and murdered just 2 miles down this road, Highway 51, by Lester Gillis, a.k.a. Babyface Nelson, a notorious member of the Dillinger gang. In addition to killing Baum, Nelson shot and wounded FBI Special Agent Jay Newman and almost fatally wounded Constable Carl Christensen before he escaped. Eugene Boisonneau, an enrollee at the Civil Conservation Corps Camp Mercer 660, was shot and killed. And John Morris, the CCC camp cook, and John Hoffman, a gas station attendant, were wounded as they failed to stop their car at the order of the government agents who mistakenly took them for 3 members of the Dillinger gang. April 22nd, 1934, started for Melvin Purvis with a cup of coffee and a series of papers he needed to read on his rare day off as the special agent in charge of the Chicago office of the Bureau of Investigation. He was notified by U.S. Marshals that a man, Henry Voss, from a remote northern Wisconsin resort community, had information important to the Bureau. Purvis called Voss and was told that the man you want most, I know where you can find him. Henry Voss did not even want to say the name Dillinger. There was so much trauma in thinking about if anybody finds out that we're turning him in. Plans were made to meet Voss at the airport in Rhinelander, Wisconsin. Now, April 22nd, 1934, started out as a pleasant Easter Sunday for Jay Newman and his family. They had just returned from Sunday's worship and were planning their day. His neighbor and co-worker, Carter Baum, was spending the day with his wife and 2 small daughters. They both would be called to report to work unexpectedly. At the office, according to Newman, Purvis informed us that he had received a tip by long-distance telephone that members of the Dillinger gang were holed up in a hunting lodge in the forest area of northern Wisconsin, about 50 miles from the small town of Rhinelander, the nearest town having any semblance of a landing field for an airplane. By the late afternoon, 3 planes were headed for Rhinelander, one from St. Paul, Minnesota, and the other 2 from Chicago. From his plane, Purvis looked over the great expanse of the woodland and lakes and wondered the fate of the men. The FBI was en route to capture the Dillinger gang, but they had little information about what they were about to face. Most of the information needed to set the trap for the Dillinger gang would have to be gathered after they landed in Rhinelander and traveled those 50 miles to Spider Lake. Purvis said of those in the plane, "You know, everyone knew that if there were 5 members of the Dillinger gang at Little Bohemia, they surely were not going to come out with their hands up." Newman flew in the same plane as Baum and Purvis. They were in a single-engine, single-prop plane, and the air became very turbulent with snow falling as they approached the landing in Rhinelander. The pilot was using a basic road highway map to guide them into Rhinelander, and they ran over the landing field. Beyond the landing field, one of the blades of the prop broke off, and all of the passengers flew out of their seats toward the cockpit of the plane. Luckily, as they came to a stop, no one was injured. Hugh Clegg and his men from St. Paul had already landed, and the planning began. Voss drew a simple map of Little Bohemia, but left off some crucial information that he didn't think about, including 1, Little Bohemia was open to the public while the gang was there. As a matter of fact, Little Bohemia had served 75 $1 dinner specials that evening. Number 2, Nan and Emil had 2 collie dogs, and they barked any time anyone drove down that driveway. Number 3, the terrain was rough and could be a problem for the agents. And number 4, the lake was below an embankment with a beach that could obscure the view of agents if anyone was trying to escape. Henry Voss told Purvis that the gang was scheduled to leave Little Bohemia early Monday morning, and relieved, Purvis felt that there was time to plan and to study the property and to make the raid a success. Voss and Special Agent Saran were sent ahead to Voss's Birchwood Lodge, while the others got organized and commandeered cars. Suddenly at 6:30 p.m., Voss returned to the airport and related to the agents that he had just met his wife Ruth on the highway, and that the gang was now planning to leave that night, and that by the time the agents arrived, the gang might already be gone. Purvis and Clegg moved quickly, but the road north was treacherous and slow. 2 commandeered cars broke down en route. Newman was one of the 8 agents who ended up having to travel to Little Bohemia on the running boards of one of the cars and hanging on for dear life in that misty, frozen night. They arrived at Voss's lodge and began their pursuit. Carrying that simple map drawn by Henry Voss, the agent cars crept north on the highway with their lights off and reached the driveway of Little Bohemia. They blocked the one road that led to the lodge, and the men were directed to go to the right and left of the lodge, and some would move toward the front. Newman, Baum, Purvis, and Clegg were to cover the lodge from the front, and the rest began to fan out. Besides the gang, Boisseneau, Morris, and Hoffman were the only customers left in the building that night while the agents were planning their attack. They had spent some time at the bar, and when they had their last drink, they walked out on the porch, followed by the owner, Emil Winnetka, and the bartender, George Basil. They talked for a few minutes, and suddenly Winnetka's dog started barking. Shadow and Prince loved to bark. And then the three headed for their car, kind of in a hurry because they wanted to get back to the camp. Hoffman backed his car around in the arch of the light in front of Little Bohemia and drove into the darkness. The heater was blaring, the radio was blasting, and the windows were closed tight. They headed toward the highway, and the armed federal men were walking toward their car, demanding that the car halt. Well, Hoffman did not hear the commands, or he just didn't stop. Agents continued to yell for the car to halt, but the car kept coming at them, and the agents opened fire. The car came to a halt finally, but it was too late. Boisseneau was dead, and the other two were wounded. Hoffman later stated, "The radio was playing in the car, and then something just hit me. And I didn't know anything was wrong until that point." Hoffman got out of the car, ran into the woods on the right of the building, and was found by agents. Morris fell out of the car and limped back into the lodge. Well, this gunfire alerted the gang inside, and some began to fire out of the second-story windows. Babyface Nelson ran out of the cottage to the right, firing into the night, almost hitting Purvis and then running back into the lodge. The agents returned fire, and then there was silence. It was believed that the gang was hunkered down inside, and Purvis and Clegg decided to wait until tear gas and more bulletproof vests arrived by car so that they could storm the lodge. Well, inside, the gangsters were on the move and escaped out of the rear of the building and down the embankment. And then they moved on to put many more people in this community in harm's way. Nelson escaped through the woods south to the lodge, south of the lodge, to the home of Paul and Minnie Lang, kidnapping them and taking their car, which died just along the highway near Elvin Kerner's home. Held by gunpoint, the Langs were led to the Kerner front door, and Kerner let them in, not knowing that Nelson was behind them, and now Nelson had 4 hostages and would soon have more. Just before that knock on the door, Kerner had called on the telephone exchange, which he ran, and alerted agents at Voss's that a car without lights was parked just outside his home. Well, in the meantime, back at Little Bohemia, Purvis and Clegg sent Baum and Newman to Voss's to make a call to Rhinelander and to the Vilas County Sheriff McGregor, to hurry to send reinforcements to the scene at once. At Voss's, they learned that a Packard car had mysteriously been stolen from Cunard's Northern Lights Resort, and that there was another car parked near Kerner's home without any lights. So they headed to the Northern Lights Resort and then on to Kerner's home. Carl, the newly elected constable, and Ann Christensen, who ran the Northern Lights bar across the road from the Northern Lights Resort, had a busy Sunday afternoon, welcoming people from as far away for their Easter Sunday drive as far away as the Upper Peninsula. Prohibition had ended, and Anne was known regionally for her wonderful sandwiches. They had quite a crowd that day, and as the evening came on, their boss, Mr. Kunert, at the hotel across the road noticed that his Packard car was missing. Baum and Newman came into their place and talked about the missing car and that they could use Carl Christensen's help in making arrests and staging roadblocks. Carl asked Anne to make up sandwiches for the federal men and told her that they would be back soon. He agreed to join them and to travel to Kerner's home to check out that car with no lights on the side of the road. Well, as they arrived at Kerner's, Christensen noted that there was another car in the driveway, and he said, "Don't worry about that car. That car belongs to George Laporte." Well, George Laporte had just taken Emil Winnetka to Kerner's to get a coat. He had come out of the lodge with his hands up with several other people that worked there, and he said to the FBI agents, "They're all still in there." Well, Babyface Nelson was driving George Laporte's car when that car came down the road, and he forced Winnetka into the car as hostages. It was about 11 o'clock when Nelson jumped out of the car and began to fire at the agents and the constable. Nelson shouted, "I know you got bulletproof vests. I want to shoot you in the head. Get out of that car so I can kill you." Newman pushed open the car door and was shot in the head and fell face first into the ground and lost consciousness. Baum and Christensen fell out of the passenger side of the car and were shot by Nelson next. One was killed and the other severely wounded. Nelson escaped in the agent's commandeered car. Newman soon regained consciousness and found Baum dead and Christensen semi-alert with 8 gunshot wounds. Newman struggled to get help, and it wasn't until after 3 a.m. in the morning that Jay Newman and Carl Christensen finally arrived at the hospital in Ironwood, Michigan. In the meantime, Dillinger, Homer Van Meter, and Red Hamilton ended up at Mitchell's Resort right down that road right there. They entered the house, pulled the phone off the wall, and demanded a car. One was found in the garage, owned by the renter named Robert Johnson. They took Robert hostage, and they made him drive them to Park Falls, where they let him out and finished their escape. Tommy Carroll was the gang member who was the thief of the Packard, and he escaped as well. Nelson escaped to Lac du Flambeau, where he held the Catfish family of White Sand Lake hostage for several days, stealing a car and eventually escaping. Well, by the end of 1934, all the members of this notorious gang would be dead, but not before many more senseless killings occurred. During the hard times of the Depression, the public became enthralled with what seemed like the magical lives of criminals. Hollywood was creating gangster movies with criminals portrayed by the likes of Clark Gable. As more and more people were caught in the crossfire of the lawlessness of these gangsters, the reality of what these people were and the harm they brought became real. And the officers of the law, whether local, state, or federal, diligently worked to apprehend these criminal men and women in order to protect and defend the people of this country. None of us can ever understand the loss and the grief suffered by the people and their families honored here today. But we can thank them and we can remember their sacrifice. A note on the anniversary of the death of W. Carter Baum on an officer down page stated, You know, Mr. Baum, it is so sad that the names of John Dillinger and Babyface Nelson are so well known in this country. Your name should be the well-known name. So, today we hope to make some new history as we memorialize and honor the names of W. Carter Baum, J. Newman, Carl Christensen, Eugene Boisneau, John Morris, and John Hoffman. Thank you.
Thank you, Kay. And like I said, that was the Reader's Digest version. So you can imagine all that there is to be said about this. So I would like to recognize some people that are in attendance here today. Oh, I have one more. No, I'll do that first. So members of the FBI agents and retired agents and your families, would you please stand to be recognized? So where is the one that came the furthest? Where did you come from? Did I hear Los Angeles? Okay. I would like to recognize our State Assemblyman, Rob Swearingen, is here. I would like to recognize my fellow town chairman, Dennis Royce, and his wife, Chris, who are here. Our County Sheriff, Joe Fath. Where are you, Joe? There he is, right there. Are the Nielsen's here? They are relatives of Carl Christensen. Yes, they are. Stand up, please. Thank you for coming. And I think we have, whoop, are we there? Yeah. Okay, we have some members of the Clarence Lang family here. And other families that were involved in that night, the Voss family, the Laporte family, and the Winnetka family. Any members from those three families that are here? Yep, we got some waving going on. And we have a representative from the State Historical Society that's going to be saying a few words. Anybody else here from the State Historical Society?
Jan Seymour, Director.
Oh, Jan Seymour is here. She's our area representative for the State Historical Society. There she is back there. Thank you all for attending. Now we have some additional speakers that would like to make some comments. So first I'm going to ask Michael Hensel of the FBI, an FBI Milwaukee Special Agent in charge, to come up and say a few words. Michael?
Good afternoon, everyone. Again, I want to thank everyone for being here today, and specifically I wanted to again introduce myself first. Michael Hensel. I'm the Special Agent in charge for the state of Wisconsin, and our 6 offices are over 250 FBI employees. It's an honor to be here today to represent the FBI, along with some of our current and former employees. Thank you for waving in the back. Louder? Is that better? Speak louder. All right. So again, just wanted to introduce myself and thank everyone for being here to represent what it means for each of us and the city itself, the town itself. I always, when we talk about loss, we talk about the sacrifice that every single person who decides to focus on a life for others may pay. This isn't the first, and it won't be the last FBI agent or fellow law enforcement officer or even public that loses their life to crime. But it is important that we memorialize these events. I think today represents an important point. It's never too late. It's never too late to continue to remember these individuals. With that, before we go any further, I think it's important, one, to thank Kay and that wonderful history lesson that I think really is pointing about how difficult it was to pull the law over 90 years ago. But I'd like to thank the town of Manitowish Waters, the town of Manitowish Waters Historic Society, the FBI Agents Association, the Society of Former FBI Special Agents, and the Wisconsin Department of Transportation, and the Wisconsin Historic Society for collaborating and making this moment possible. The FBI specifically will donate and commemorate agents who've lost their lives in different ways. In 2016, the FBI opened a new office down in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, our main office, and we dedicated that building to Carter Baum as a remembrance of the sacrifice, the only FBI agent to lose his life in the state of Wisconsin. But today would not have been possible without, I think, two key individuals. Everyone's already met Kay, and I appreciate everything she's done to make this day happen. And also one of our own, Scott Mogg, who I'd like to introduce. Scott is a current FBI agent and our WMD coordinator, our Weapons of Mass Destruction coordinator. And really without his family and himself making a stop here on a fateful day to talk about what happened and learn more, each of us would not be sitting here today. So with that, I'd like to bring Scott up and kind of talk to you a little bit about that.
Thank you, sir. 4 years ago, on a family vacation here in Manitowish Waters, I was fortunate to meet Kay Kranz, who gave myself and two of my sons a tour on Little Bohemia and the former Corona residence where Carter Baum was killed. Afterwards, Kay and I spoke about the sacrifices made that night, and we started to discuss ways to memorialize the history of April 22nd, 1934. Today is a culmination of many phone calls, emails, meetings, to make this a reality. And myself, on a personal note, I'd like to thank Kay for her assistance in this endeavor. Thank you so much, Kay.
So a little bit about the FBI, kind of where we started and where we are today, and Kay started this. In 1918, the FBI opened a field office here in Wisconsin. In 1925, we closed that office. We started it with 3 FBI agents. If you're listening to the history, we closed it in 1925, and we put the responsibilities on the Chicago, Minneapolis' field offices, mainly because of what the crime looked like at that point. But because of the events that happened here 90 years ago, we reopened our FBI field office a year later, 1935. And since then, we've acted as a full FBI office with 6 other offices around the state. We have representatives here from our different resident agencies. So we have them in Green Bay, and La Crosse, Eau Claire, Wausau, Madison, and then ultimately our main office in Milwaukee. You know, I often think about what it means for everyone who's worked in law enforcement. And many of you, the retired agents who are here today and retired law enforcement, know that it's a choice to get up every day, walk out the door to help protect others. Everyone knows that comes with a risk. Everyone knows that. And I'd like to think that each of us here today are celebrating the fact that it doesn't matter when it happened, it doesn't matter who you are, even if you don't know anyone related or you're not in law enforcement. It's important to memorialize the people who do that so we can live our lives the way we want to. And I think that's an important piece of what every FBI agent chooses to do. No one seeks credit. No one remembers what you do specifically each day, but the toll that can be on your family and friends, and ultimately the organization itself, is something that we take serious. So again, it's a big thank you when we're remembered as part of the community, even though we're federal. All of our 260 plus employees, most of them are from here, grew up here, and call Wisconsin home. And they want to help defend and protect the United States as well as the state. The FBI motto is fidelity, bravery, and integrity. And I don't think any one of the people who lost their lives could display that more in the events that led to their deaths. Finally, I'd like to read the saying that's put on the plaque for Carter Baum in our office that was dedicated again in 2016. It reads, a hero is an ordinary person facing extraordinary circumstances and acting with courage, honor, and self-sacrifice. And to that end, I think those words echo all the individuals who both were injured and lost their lives in this event. So again, thank you, and I appreciate being involved, and I will turn it over to our next speaker.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Nancy Savage, the Executive Director of the Society of Former Special Agents of the FBI. Nancy.
Hey, thank you very much. That's a mouthful of a title. I like to call it Elks for Agents. We're a membership organization. We also have a charitable foundation. And I know it really means a lot to all of our members that everyone is here today, because one of our, and I really think, and you've echoed it here, but I'm going to echo it as well. This is really the life child of Kay and Scott, who came together to make this happen and reached out to a number of us. Luckily, our foundation, one of our primary programs is to honor our service martyrs, which unfortunately is a growing list, like it is in all of law enforcement. And we have a program to honor these service martyrs. Part of it is by making sure appropriate plaques are placed, such as this, but also every year on the anniversary or close to the anniversary of the death, we send out flags from our office to the local chapter chair, and they make sure that a fresh American flag is placed on their grave. And at that time, a lot of our members assemble, a prayer is said, and a thank you for their service and sacrifice. And if we can, hopefully we assemble family members and invite them as well. So they are truly never forgotten. I've been fortunate because I live in Northern Virginia, and several times I've been able to go up to the grave of Carter Baum, which is in Rock Creek Parish Cemetery in Washington, D.C., and participated in our flag ceremony. It's very moving. He has several designations on his gravestone of his affiliation with the FBI. He's honored. It's a beautiful place, very peaceful, and I'm thankful for that. And everyone knows Carter Baum is not forgotten and never will be. And then I also want to thank all of law enforcement across the country. This is a time when law enforcement is under attack. It's like it was 90 years ago in the 1930s when this horrible event happened. And it's more important than ever to honor their service and sacrifice. And I would like to end this with God bless Carter Baum and all of those in law enforcement today.
Thank you, Nancy. Next will be Fitzy Heimdall. He's a representative of the Wisconsin State Historical Society. So, Fitzy.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Fitzy Heimdall. I am the State Historical Markers Program Coordinator with the Wisconsin Historical Society, and it is my pleasure to be up here in Manitowish waters with all of you. Along with my colleague Janet Seymour, Director of Outreach, and Board of Curators Keen Winters, as well as Lowell and Mary Peterson, to celebrate the dedication of Wisconsin's 616th official state historical marker. Like others before me, I would also like to start by just thanking everyone here in attendance, as well as the individuals and organizations that were involved in making this marker project a reality. The Manitowish Waters Historical Society, the Society of Former Special Agents of the FBI Agents Association, the Town of Manitowish Waters, and the Wisconsin Department of Transportation. Wisconsin's state historical markers are an excellent educational tool, serving the local community and visitors alike. The program serves as a vital tool in the Historical Society's mission of connecting people to the past by collecting, preserving, and sharing stories. These markers tell the stories of our collective past and connect us to history in a very unique way. These markers are written expressions of the past, oftentimes placed at the very locations in which it took place. Wisconsin's State Historic Markers Program came to be, as you've heard, through the local efforts to commemorate the places, people, and events that were important to their communities. Today, the program still retains that importance of being driven primarily at the local level. Any individual, public agency, or private organization is eligible to submit a nomination for a state historical marker to tell the stories that contribute to our state's rich history. And I'll certainly be here if anyone has questions about how to procure a marker in their own community as well. It's always a highlight of mine to be able to attend these events and to see the pride and excitement generated from the community. State historical markers are located in all corners of our state, from the pine forests of the Northland to the towering bluffs of the Driftless region to our largest urban centers, with an average of 8 to 10 new marker applications received each year. That number is growing quickly. So again, on behalf of the Wisconsin Historical Society and the Board of Curators, it is my absolute pleasure to congratulate all of those who made this effort possible. It is an honor to be a part of the dedication of the 1934 Spider Lake Raid on the John Dillinger Gang Wisconsin State Historical Marker. Thank you.
Thank you, Fitzy. Now I would like to ask our state senator, Mary Felskowski, to come up and say a few words.
Thank you, John. I want to say it's an absolute pleasure to be here today. I was with Rob Swearingen, Representative Swearingen, all morning. We were running around northern Wisconsin doing our duties, meeting with a couple of lake associations. Swimmer's itch was the topic this morning, but that's another story. You know, I think Kay said it best today. We've often have the Hollywood and others, we have a tendency to romanticize people like John Dillinger and Babyface Nelson. And we have a tendency not to romanticize our brave men in blue and the people that have a tendency to keep us safest. And I think that's sad. But today is different. Today we're going to honor the people that should be honored. And as we see as far back as the 1930s, these bad people infiltrated our beautiful Northwoods, and they brought chaos and death up here. And we still see that today with fentanyl and all the other drug issues and the bad things that can happen even as far north as northern Wisconsin and our beautiful Northwoods. So it's my hats off to the FBI for everything that you do and every day getting up, trying to keep us safe, whether it's in northern Wisconsin or all the other beautiful areas of Wisconsin. To our local law enforcement, Sheriff Pfaff, for keeping us safe up here. So it's a great honor to be here today and to honor the people that truly matter, that get up every day and keep us safe in all the adversity that we've seen lately. And it's going to be fun to have this unveiled and to actually see what that honor is going to look like. A special thank you to Kay and Scott for your idea 4 years ago and keeping that alive, and for the Historical Society and the local units of government that helped them to do that. So thank you to everyone.
Thank you, Mary. I do have a note from Senator Tammy Baldwin. She was unable to attend, but she was kind enough to send a note. Dear friends of Little Bohemia Lodge in the town of Manitowish Waters, congratulations on receiving a State Historical Society marker commemorating Carter Baum. This marker will serve as a permanent reminder to visitors of the sacrifices made by Special Agent Baum during the Dillinger Raid at Little Bohemia in 1934. 90 years ago, Special Agent Baum, other members of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and local law enforcement bravely descended on Little Bohemia Lodge in an effort to capture John Dillinger. The raid of the lodge led to the arrest of 3 people closely connected to the Dillinger Gang and marked an important moment in our state's history. To this day, Little Bohemia Lodge retains the scars from this violent clash and uses these leftover bullet holes as an opportunity to educate the public about the events of April 22, 1934. In doing so, the Lodge honors the memory of Carter Baum and continues to highlight the work of law enforcement in protecting our state. I am glad that this historic spot is being appropriately marked by the State Historical Society, and I look forward to many more years of Little Bohemia Lodge. Tammy Baldwin, United States Senator. With that, I think I gained some papers up here. So now the moment has come, and that's the moment, the main event, the unveiling of the marker. I would like to ask Frank, Michael, Nancy, Fitzy, and Kate to come up. And I'm missing somebody. To do the honors, I would like to also ask all active and retired FBI agents and other law enforcement officers to stand again, well, to be recognized. This marker very appropriately honors Agents Carter Baum and Jay Newman, our town constable Carl Christensen, and 3 citizens, one of whom was killed and the other 2 wounded. I encourage all of you to take the time today or in the future to stop and visit the marker and read the story. While you're doing that, think about this marker as honoring the thousands of law enforcement. Those aren't mine. Law enforcement officers who in the last 90 years have run towards the emergency and made the ultimate sacrifice to protect our freedom and security. So far in 2024, this is amazing, this is sad. So far, good timing. In 2024, over 230 of these officers have made that sacrifice. That's how many law enforcement officers have been killed in the United States so far this year. So now we will unveil the monument. Now the monument is unveiled. Boy, when you turn your back to these people, it's now my honor to introduce John Egelhoff, retired FBI special agent, who has graciously offered to play his bagpipes to close our dedication ceremony. John, you're on. Thank you, John. By the way, his wife, Lois, her maiden name was Lois Jacobson. She was actually born in Manitowish waters, and she may be the only person in the world that was born in Manitowish waters. I think she came a little early, probably. But anyway, thank you for coming, and we appreciate it. So just one more announcement. There is a reception at Little Bohemia, and unfortunately the capacity over there is limited, so if you have a name badge on, you made reservations early enough to go to Little Bohemia. We're not trying to be discriminatory, it's just the way it is. So in order to get you there, we have a school bus that will be pulling up here to take you over there, and then when you're ready to come back, they'll bring you back here to your cars. And it's probably going to take 2 trips because of the number of people. So with that, I think we're done. Thank you all for coming. And come and visit the marker.
WASW Channel 7 covered this important event, and a link to this dedication can be found in the description below. 1934 Spider Lake raid on the John Dillinger gang. Organized criminal activity swept through American cities in the 1920s and 1930s. The sparsely populated areas of northern Wisconsin were a preferred hiding place for gangsters, and the presence of criminal groups in the area led to unfortunate losses of life among both civilians and law enforcement. The Dillinger gang, led by John Dillinger, was an infamous group of bank robbers that terrorized the Midwest. The gang chose Spider Lake, now Manitowish waters, as a place to regroup in April of 1934. On the morning of April 22nd, the Chicago field office of the Division of Investigation, DOI, the precursor to today's Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, learned that suspicious guests, possibly Dillinger and affiliated gang members, were staying at Emil Winetka's Little Bohemia Lodge, a local resort. Federal agents from Chicago and St. Paul, arriving at the lodge, encountered innocent local residents trying to leave the area. Tragically, after the locals did not heed commands to stop their car, agents mistakenly shot and killed Eugene Boisneau and wounded John Morris and John Hoffman, all civilians. Alerted by the gunfire, the gang began firing from the second floor. Dillinger and others, under the cover of machine gun fire, escaped out of the back of the lodge. Later that evening, Special Agents W. Carter Baum and J. Newman, accompanied by Spider Lake Constable Carl Christensen, responded to a call from the nearby Kerner's Resort, about 2 miles from Little Bohemia Lodge. There they found Lester Gillis, a.k.a. Babyface Nelson, who was a member of the Dillinger gang, in a stolen vehicle. Gillis opened fire, killing Special Agent Baum and wounding Special Agent Newman and Constable Christensen, and then escaped. On July 22, 1934, Dillinger was killed in Chicago, Illinois. On November 27, 1934, Gillis was fatally wounded in a shootout with special agents in Barrington, Illinois. During this encounter, Special Agents Samuel Cowley and Herman Hollis were also killed. Thank you very much for watching our video.